Jaws reference, but it is the windiest day I think it's been all freaking year, and a lot of the siding of the under part of my house is messed up, so and maintenance says they're on their way. That was 2.5 weeks ago, so they're really on their way. But because of that, it is blowing in the breeze horribly. So if you hear that, or kids screaming, or dogs barking, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna try and up close it so that you can't hear it, but I cannot promise anything. We are reading, or shall I say rereading, a couple of chapters of Betty White's book, if you ask me. And we're gonna do a good little chunk here. I say re-recorded because I read this once, and it is complete and utter silence. You can see my mouth moving. You can see me turning pages, but dead silence. We're going for a different approach today. This is the approach I went for when I filmed this the first time, where I'm just gonna show you. I'm just gonna hold the book because I can get a closer whisper. So you're not gonna be able to see the book, but it is what it is. So this is the chapter, The Proposal. Doing movies is different, but interesting. One thing in particular struck me about being on the set of The Proposal was what a joy it was to work with Sandra Bullock. Here's this big movie star, and there wasn't anything movie star about her at all. She was just as down to earth as she could be. We became great and dear friends, still are. Same goes for Ryan Reynolds. Anne Fletcher, the movie's wonderful director, had been a choreographer originally. We all got relaxed and silly with one another, so she wouldn't talk onto the set. She'd do a ballet leap. She wouldn't just walk onto set, she'd do a ballet leap onto set saying, "The director's here." One of the scenes in the movie, Sandra and I are dancing around a bonfire. On that day of filming, we'd been working all day, but we had to finish that night because we were moving locations the next day. That kid is directly outside my house. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to sing this blinking Eskimo song in order to shoot the scene. First, I had to learn it. An Eskimo makes no sense. I don't know how the Eskimos communicate, but I learned it. God knows what I was really saying. And then came time to dance around the fire, and just said, "Let loose," told us to do whatever we felt like doing, and Sandra was such a good sport. So just about the time we started moving around, drip, 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 the rain started, and it kept getting harder and harder. Now we had to finish the scene because we were leaving the next day. So they put up a canvas on 4 big poles to keep us dry, but the rain continued harder and harder. I've said it before, I love my profession, and I do. At 3 o'clock in the morning, in the rain, you better love it a lot. The Lost Valentine. For the Hallmark movie, The Lost Valentine, with Jennifer Love Hewitt, we shot in this pretty little house in Atlanta, in a lovely neighborhood. Across the street was a low wall, and behind it was this big grassy lawn. All the neighbors knew that I was working there, so they all brought their dogs. We'd look across the street and from the set, and they'd be lined up, owners and dogs, sitting on the wall. Between scenes, I'd go across the street and say hello to get to know all the dogs. There was this young man named Mitch who was hired to escort me around the set, who would walk over with me. One day he came in and said, "Betty, there's a Newfoundland out there." And the way he said it, the way he tells it, the word Newfoundland, I was shot out of my chair like a bullet. Why not? I don't get to smooch a Newfie that often, so I got my dog fix every day. Now that's a happy set. Letters. Interviews with Redford. It's a real privilege to have been working in this business for so long, but there are a few built-in hazards, some of which can't be avoided. Interviews, for example. There is no way to even estimate the number of them I have done over the years. We must be in the millions by now. This means I have answered the same questions, told the same anecdotes, wheezed on the same weeds on and on ad infinitum and again. The interviewers know the material better than I do going in, and it's tough to put a fresh spin on it. A few years ago, I was asked one of the standard questions for probably the umpteenth time. Is there anything you haven't done in your career that you would like to do? Well, I had just seen Meryl Streep and Robert Redford out in Africa for the 3rd time, so the answer was automatic. Yes, Robert Redford, and I was surprised to suddenly find it was true. Ever since, I have realized that the answer fits a variety of situations, and I've used it accordingly. I've never met him. I never his involvement with the Wilderness Society, and I maintain that Robert Redford answer works for me in almost any department. Fast forward to January 2010, a few days after I had received my unbelievable honor from the Screen Actors Guild. I brought the mail in one morning as usual and found a letter. Dear Mrs. Loudon, Robert Redford has asked if I forward his congratulatory note on you receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. Cheers to you. Sincerely, Donna Cale, the assistant to Robert Redford. More than the note, the congratulation consisted of a delightfully funny 6-stanza poem that began with Dear Betty and ended with Congratulations, Robert. By now, I don't have to tell you how my mind was blown. Of course, my first reaction was that someone was putting me on, but the stationery was authentic, and on looking further, I found a great picture of himself signed. Guess who? Robert Redford. Finally, I found the courage to write him a thank you, and I couldn't promise to stop using his name unless he didn't find it funny. I can only say that Robert Redford is one class act. P.S. I know you would love to hear the poem. Sorry. Writer's block. Certain common cliches maintain that most men love hardware stores just as women dote on shoe stores. I have no idea how accurate that is because personally I am strange for stationery stores. Not for the fancy writing paper, and it's those tablets and packs of 3-lined whole notebook paper and those packs of typing paper that turn me on. I even buy those things when I go to our grocery store, whether I need them or not. Let's just say I'm in the middle of a writing project and have perhaps hit a slow spot. Bringing in this stuff can recharge the battery, or if I am not in the middle of a writing project, it can also often cause me to start one. Why? I have no idea, but it's been that way all of my life, even back to my school days. A fresh pack of paper was the best incentive in the world for me to tackle my homework. As weird as it all sounds, I'm not alone. I can remember being once told by an author who was rather well known at the time that on rare occasions when he'd hit stubborn writer's block, there was only one specific brand of green lined paper that would get him started again. He called it his paper laxative. As soon as he'd bring in a pack, the ideas would start again. Okay, so I'm weird. At least I'm in good company. John Steinbeck, who was Alan's and my good friend, did his writing stand up on a drafting table in a long hand, with his white pit bull terrier angel lying across his feet. People seem amazed that I write in longhand. Well, if it's good enough for Steinbeck, it's good enough for me. I really can't communicate to a machine. The thoughts want to go from my brain down my arm to my hand to the page. After I've written the first draft, I copy it over again into another page. That's when most of the change is made, as I polish and rewrite the original once again in longhand. I still remember these lovely times with my mother when I would try and copy her handwriting. Maybe isn't only Steinbeck's influence after all. With our computers today, we have a whole new population who will find all of this totally academic since they write and by hand as little as possible. Even signing their names seems to have gone by the boards. Computers can't take all the blame. Both my business manager and my doctor have the writing that is practically unreadable. Whenever I get fan mail in which the handwriting is absolutely illegible, I wonder if they've taken writing lessons from my business manager. Ironically, when I grew up and entered into show business, I found many people who actually practiced diligently to make their autographs as eye-catching, illegibly, and uncopyable as possible. In Hot in Cleveland, Valerie Bernatelli, Wendy Malik, Jane Leaves, and I sign scripts each week to be used as charity auction items. I'm always so grateful that I know their names because I wouldn't have had a clue from their signatures, which are as distinctive and interesting as they are. You can't imagine how dull and readable but boring Betty White looks on the script cover in that distinguished company. I must practice. Fans and fan mail. The term fan somehow seems more appropriate for the one of the faceless crowd at a sporting event rather than those nice folks who greet me on the street or in the market or at an airport or wherever. The greetings are warm and friendly, probably because they haven't been inviting me to their homes for decades. The Betty White fan club, Pets, has been around since 1971. While it's grown some over the years, it's still kept very personal thanks to the loving, long-serving President Kay Daly and the charter member Ellie Moore. They have hung in there since the very beginning and have become a treasure Cleveland, and they are deeply appreciated. Bet's Pets is named so because of its inception. The club was dedicated to helping animals. The members pay a minimal annual dues, and at Christmas and for my birthday in January, they put together a bonus gift, all of which is forwarded to various animal charities in my honor. They are a great group. As well as sending out newsletters to the members about my activities, Kay manages to put out a great journal every year comprising of pictures and articles and pet news sent in by club members, which keeps all of us updated on one another. She did all that while working as a 4th grade school teacher until she retired. Lee, after serving as a nurse in the military, became the head of a surgical nurse at UCLA Hospital until her retirement. I am most grateful they haven't retired from my life. Fans in general continue to amaze me. When I'm working out of town, I show up in different studios for appearances, no matter which city we're in. There are a group waiting, holding pictures of me to be autographed. How do they know my schedule when I don't know it myself? Time is always short, and I feel bad sometimes when they rush me past and I can't stop and sign. But these people always seem to understand and keep smiling. Fan mail is something else again, which in my invaluable assistant Donna Elderbrush and I contend we try to keep up, but the mail continues to bugger on. A good percentage of it consists of picture requests, which I sign for Donna to send. I can't answer it all, of course, but there are a few categories that Donna sets aside to which I do respond. Those who have just lost a life partner. I need to share their pain with someone who has been through it. Boys and girls achieving Eagle Scouts and Gold Awards, respectively. Hurting the individuals who are reporting loss of a beloved pet. Students writing me as part of a school project. My answers are understandably brief, but I must answer. Fellow actors have urged me to send the mail to the companies that make a business of handling fan mail rather than complicate a busy schedule. One actor friend maintains he's never dealt with his fan mail in any way, he just dumps it. Truth be told, I need to read the letters to discover why I'm doing, or what I'm doing right, and more importantly, wrong. These writers don't hesitate to tell you. I used to travel alone without thinking about it. I can't do that anymore. I have to have a meet and greet on both ends to get me through an airport. People are just being nice, but I recently actually missed a plane because I couldn't break away. Between the Snickers commercial and the explosion of projects of which I worked in the past year, and a whole generation of fans who have met me through syndication, it seems a number of people who call themselves fans just keep growing. I don't mean for this to sound self-serving, but it can be a problem, and yet these are the people responsible for your good fortune. Please know how grateful I am, even if I do have to rush to catch a plane. Somebody, this is not obviously in the book, somebody tell me why Betty White is not flying on a private, well, now she's passed obviously, but before that, why was she not flying on a private jet? Betty White's gotta be ridiculously wealthy. Why is she on commercial planes? Like, what's happening? Stagecraft. Ranger. One of the first questions in every interview since I started in television more than 60 years ago has been, when you were growing up, did you always want to be in show business? My answer has never changed. As a kid, show business wasn't even in the mix. As far back as I can remember, I wanted to either be a forest ranger or a zookeeper. The problem was, back then, a girl wasn't allowed to be either one. That was a real problem for a girl who grew up with the way I did. Even today, my earliest and fondest memories are of pack trips in high Sierras on horseback I took every summer with my mom and dad. Mules carried our camping equipment and food supply. The time we first went, I was just 4 years old and rode in the front of Dad's horse. Following year, I graduated to mount on my own. It was a 2-day trip to our destination, the Ray Lakes. Once there, we pitched camp, put bells on our horses and mules, and turned them loose. Pros that they we all hung out together nearby. I can still hear those bells. The next day, the guy would leave us and corral the animals to take them back to the ranch. 3 weeks later, he'd bring them back to pick us up. In those days, we'd never see another human being during this whole 3 weeks. It was true wilderness. Heaven. After those early years, we moved our campsite to a remote area of Yellowstone National Park. In the way a lot of kids look forward to Christmas all year, I used to count down the days from one of the June to the next until we take off again. That's a long trip. 3 weeks is crazy. On the last half day of school before summer, my folks would pick me up at Beverly Hills High School. We were on our way. Dad always wore the forest ranger hat on vacation, and when I'd spot that hat, I knew the day had finally arrived. So it's no surprise I developed a love of animals and the outdoors. But as a child, I could only dream of zookeeper or a forest ranger. Today, after 47 years of working with the Los Angeles Zoo, I am satisfying the zookeeper part. Now let me tell you the clincher. Not long ago, I received a letter from the United States Forest Service that thrilled me to my toes. It seems someone there must have read one of these interviews about the early dreams, because there was an invitation to Washington, D.C., where in a program at the Kennedy Center, the Forest Service would make me an honorary forest ranger. It was all very official, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Of course, I went back for the ceremony, and it was a beautiful program. Thomas Tidwell, the Forest Service chief, made the presentation with a huge Smokey the Bear standing behind him. As I stepped onto the podium to accept, I got a big hug from Smokey, which almost got me. But I didn't actually lose it until after receiving the certificate and badge. They presented me with the official ranger's hat. He had been gone all those years, but the memories washed over me. I would swear I could see my dad standing right there. In that moment, it's a moment I continue to replay in my mind. My eternal thanks to the Forest Service for this honor, which is so deeply appreciated. It was truly one of the greatest moments of my life. I shall continue to work my hardest to spread the word that not only we must protect our wilderness areas, we must appreciate them. They are an endangered species. Stage fright. I can remember my first attack of stage fright. I was in grammar school in the 3rd grade, and I had to get up in front of the class to recite a poem. Little Mai met a cameraman on a Chinatown street one day, and that's how it started. I was panic-stricken. I don't remember if I made it through the poem at all, but I can remember what it felt like. Still, I somehow managed to get to continue as a young girl, participating in plays throughout grammar school and high school. In fact, I wrote a play commemorating graduation from the Horace Mann Grammar School, which was called Land of the Rising Sun. We were studying Japan at the time, and like any good red-blooded American girl, I wrote myself in the lead. I wrote a prologue for the show explaining it was a traditional theater, and props were held by non-actors. The play opened with the princess talking to the nightingale. Since one of the football players was going to be on stage holding a bird cage, clearly this all had to be explained in the prologue. Guess who spoke for the prologue? So I was the star and the interlocutor, and anything else it could be. Remember who wrote it? But I never outgrew the stage fright. To this day, it still happens every single time I go on stage. Jay Leno and I are good friends, and I appear on his show all the time. We greet each other before the show and have a catch-up in the makeup room. Suddenly, it's showtime. I'm in the wings, and those butterflies appear. Ball players have rituals. They may touch each corner of the plate with the bat to calm themselves down. I have no rituals. I have butterflies. So you work your way through it. Let me be clear. You are never calm. But it's your job to deliver. In the case of Jay Leno or Craig Ferguson or David Letterman or Jimmy Fallon, suddenly the conversation gets interesting and it just carries you along. Just hope the audience comes with you. At the 2011 SAG Awards, when my name was announced, I was so shocked. It was so unexpected that I would win the award given the other nominees that my first thought was they read the wrong name. Then I got up to the podium and thought, oh no, I'm gonna have to say something. On air, I might look calm, but if you knew what was going on in my head, your own head would spin. None of the tricks I try work. I'm lucky if I could breathe. It's amazingly common for actors to have some form of stage fright. It just manifests itself in different ways. I remember Rue McClellan used to say, that's one thing I never get. I never get stage fright. I think she was lying through her teeth. You're taking a chance every time you step in front of an audience. So is the stage fright due to the fear of forgetting lines, fear of drawing a blank on what to say, fear of making a fool of oneself, all of the above. So, I'm gonna stop here for today because that's a lot of chapters I just read. But I do want to stop with this picture of the two of them because I am a Golden Girls fiend and they are just too cute together. Look at them. So cute. I want to prioritize filming more of this book. I'm gonna get through it. I promise. I would say we gotta be kind of close to halfway, right? Ish, yeah. So I'm gonna try and maybe do like 3 more parts or so, and then we'll be done with this book. But I have enjoyed reading this book. I know some of you guys have enjoyed this book. slow reading, but I feel like because this book is so long, if I read it slow, we'll be here for a decade, so I try not to read it too slow. But thank you, Betty, for entertaining the audience one other time, obviously, because she's always entertaining. But I hope you guys have a